Welcome to Energy Vista, a podcast on energy issues, personal and professional trajectories. I'm your host, Leslie Palti-Guzman. In each episode of this podcast, we chat with energy experts from all around the world. We exchange on timely energy issues as well on their life experience. You will learn a lot, whether you are an energy aficionado or a newbie. It's February 1st and time for a new Energy Vista episode. Today I'm exchanging with Akos Losz, energy analyst at the International Energy Agency, known as IEA. Akos is originally from Hungary. He studied and worked in New York City at the Columbia Energy Center and moved exactly a year ago to Paris, a city that I know well, and we'll come back to Akos' trajectory later in the podcast. Hi, Akos.
Hi, Leslie. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, and I'm glad we are able to exchange today. I feel that we have both managed to make it happen despite many challenges. I came down to the office today despite New York's huge snowstorm while my kids are on Zoom at school. And you put up also with some COVID-19 restrictions in France. So I'm glad we made it happen. So
Yeah, sure we do.
let's make it even more worthwhile. We'll discuss recent price volatility in the global gas market and trends to watch in Asia and Europe. So the International Energy Agency recently published a gas market report, Q4 2020, highlighting the big trends observed last year. And one notable feature has been the extreme price volatility. Spot LNG prices in Asia have more than tripled to $30 per million BTU, and some transactions were even reported higher. And let me stress this out, it was even a bigger increase in the spot Asian LNG prices than what we have seen when the great Fukushima disaster happened in Japan and all the nuclear capacity in Japan was wiped out and needed to be compensated by LNG cargoes, which was a huge demand shock. And here we are in today's market that was supposed to be oversupplied. So explain us what the report is highlighting in terms of drivers to explain this unprecedented roller coaster prices in Asia.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. So as you mentioned, we just published a report which, among other things, discusses what happened in 2020 and what we expect for 2021. It's freely available on our website. And as you said, the last 12 months was truly extraordinary. We tested the markets both in terms of extreme oversupply. So we did have oversupply throughout last year, but we also did have an extreme tightness towards the end of the year and early this year in January. And we could see that the adjustment to the oversupply part went pretty well. We highlighted that in our previous report with LNG supplies, pipeline gas flows, storage, and also upstream production taking a big part of the adjustment. But we could see that the adjustment to this latest scarcity situation in the winter did not go so well, and as a result, we could see these incredible price moves. So what happened was really a number of normal supply demand factors coming together in what we call a perfect storm. And this oversupply situation started to tighten in the second half of the year, and we have seen from the third quarter onwards quite a number of LNG supply outages, both planned but increasingly also unplanned outages, and that started to tighten the market quite significantly by the time the winter has started. And when this colder than normal winter hit Northeast Asia, then suddenly market participants were caught short, and there weren't enough available LNG cargo suddenly to go around, and a number of things contributed to this. So as I said, winter was colder in Northeast Asia than normal. This is part of the La Nina phenomenon. So we went from a unseasonably warm winter in the previous one to this relatively cold one, which in and of itself a significant factor. We sometimes underappreciate the significance of weather, but gas is indeed very, very temperature sensitive. And at the same time, we had nuclear availability issues in Japan. So actually, the majority of the restarted nuclear reactors were down for either regular maintenance or safety upgrades at the time when this winter tightness came. There were restrictions on coal-fired generation in Korea, and China also faced some supply availability issues from Central Asian pipeline gas suppliers. So suddenly we needed a lot of LNG, and supply was still restricted. So the marginal supply that could come to Asia was from the United States, and the Panama Canal turned out to be a huge bottleneck as the shipments started to ramp up. So some of the vessels had to take the long way around Africa, and so there were delays, and shipping rates spiked quite considerably, and also there were some actual shortages which led to this huge jump in the prices in December and January.
Yes. So I find it very interesting, experts like us a posteriori can enumerate like 10 different reasons, and you went through all of those, and I agree. But at the same time, I still find baffling, this sudden rise of JKM. And I think that there are, at least one other big reason that not many people discuss, but since I'm independent, I'm happy to say it out loud. I think traders are quietly off record pointing to trade manipulation. And there might be some kind of suspicious activity there. I authored a paper in 2018 on the future of Asian natural gas market, the need for a regional hub. And I was flagging at the time the vulnerability of JKM due to the small pool of market participants and transactions used to derive it. And I think that, it's not impossible that one specific player or two drive up also prices. So I think it's overall, the big implication for me is that it's unfortunate for the development of, a face value market-based pricing in Asia, and for the evolution of price discovery and greater transparency. I think we haven't seen the end of the story yet on how what will be the impact from the buyers on the buyer side and on the supplier side in terms of the next round of contracts, and whether buyers will still trust the at face value the price of spot transaction. So it's not such a good move in terms of liquidity and price discovery for Asia.
Yeah, I cannot comment specifically on market manipulation. I think it's the job of the national authorities to monitor that, and I'm sure they're doing their job diligently. I think market participants have been keenly aware that the liquidity on the JKM is not always very high, and I think in a sense this price moves reflected accurately the acute scarcity that emerged, in particular in Japan. So if you look at wholesale electricity prices in Japan, those shoot up to levels that are roughly equivalent to $300 per MMBTU equivalent gas prices at times. So there was indeed physical scarcity, and at some points there were rationing of electricity, and some utilities asked their consumers to conserve and use electricity only for essential purposes, including for heating. So I think, in a sense, the price accurately reflected that scarcity, and in a sense gave out the price signal that was appropriate for the situation. But of course, we can argue that heavy reliance on spot markets can lead to these kinds of dangers with volatility, and I'm sure market participants will draw the right lessons. I'm not sure this will be enough to drive them back to sign more long-term contracts. I think they might just sign short to medium-term contracts and pay more attention to have a healthy balance in their supply portfolio, and not rely so heavily on spot markets at times.
Yeah, at least it created a kind of an electrical shock on the market, right? Like it was a gloomy, kind of pessimistic down market, and suddenly it woke up everybody. And it would be interesting also, like countries like rich, mature, industrialized country that all 2020 were already thinking ahead about the aftermath of COVID-19, green infrastructure, the energy transition, and there was not that much discussion about supply security in the gas market. Let's say.
Yeah, that will surely
So
come back.
yes, yes, yes. It woke up everybody to not to bury too fast what's going on in today's market.
Although I have to say that that's one of the main takeaways from our report. I think is that we should not be carried away too much by this sudden demand jump and price hike, because COVID-19 is pretty much still with us, and it's impacting gas demand very negatively, not just in 2020 but also in 2021. So we actually are forecasting a relatively subdued gas demand growth for the next year as well. So just less than
Mhm.
3 minutes, which is only barely enough to make up for the fall from last year. So
Yeah,
we are
yeah.
we are not too bullish, at least for this coming year, despite the recent upheaval in the market.
Yeah. And also I don't think it will be enough to trigger a new wave of signing long-term contracts and going ahead with new FIDs on the liquefaction side for new projects. Investors will need to see much stronger fundamentals in the years ahead to commit to a series of new projects.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And when it comes to new FIDs, you don't have to look at this year and next year, but rather look at 5+ years into
Mhm.
the future. And we have another wave of supply coming to the market, and we think Qatar will likely take an FID at some point, and so you have to be optimistic despite these already expected supply additions about the gas market balance 5+ years into the future. And I think this winter price spike episode may not bring back appetite for long-term contracts, but where we can still be wrong is perhaps the definition of long-term contracts. Maybe we just change the definition to, let's say, 10-year
Mid-
deals and a
yeah.
mix of various durations, and project finance lenders somehow find a way to finance those. And in that case, I think there might be some additional activity. But I agree with your assessment that this alone will probably not be enough to change the sort of medium term outlook that is required to be rather bullish for new FIDs to get started again, especially
Yeah.
with Qatar still lingering in the background as a likely FID.
Yes. So we touch on seasonality and extreme cold weather temperatures that have still a huge impact on gas demand and winter prices. And it seems especially true for China. It's often hard to predict what will happen with Chinese winter gas demand. We remember the big winter spike created by Chinese huge demand in 2017-18. It seems that this winter was also kind of a surprise for the market. Can you explain us why?
Yeah, so I think the epicenter was really in Japan, but China also experienced some tightness this winter, and I think that was mainly related to uh, first of all reduced Central Asian flow. So turns out China is becoming increasingly seasonal because of the higher share of residential consumers that China keeps connecting to the grid, and that's greatly to its seasonal
So
demand
it's heating.
profile. and
Mhm.
and at the same time, Central Asian suppliers are also often struggling with winter demand spikes. So we have seen that the reliability of supply from that direction is perhaps less reliable in the winter. At the same time, Russian pipe suppliers have been ramping up. So those are dedicated field
Mhm.
developments targeting the Chinese market. So we expect a more stable flow profile coming from Russia as it ramps up in the coming years. And And
And we,
I think
yeah.
this whole emergence of China as the biggest gas importer, when you add up pipeline and LNG together in the world, that has some really big impact on the seasonality of LNG itself. So
Mhm.
so if you look at Chinese natural gas demand. Over 2020, it went up by about 5%, but at the same time, peak demand in December went up by 15% year on year. So there are large seasonal swings, and that mostly draws from the spot LNG market, and just the seasonal fluctuation of the Chinese system adds
Right.
considerable volatility to the spot LNG market over time.
Yeah. And in the future, depending on how much they manage to build additional underground storage and drive also their own domestic production, there will be some change in their balance. But also, I was wondering globally, do you see seasonality as something that will remain very relevant in the gas market, or whether with the energy transition and maybe less use of gas in electricity, especially in the developed economies, we going to see less seasonal swings for gas demand?
I think in the near term we can perhaps expect more, even though this huge swing in seasonal temperatures from last winter to this winter is a big factor, which is not a structural phenomenon, rather maybe a one-off or a rare occurrence. So the weather itself was not something that would structurally impact seasonality. Weather is always there and always uncertain and hard to predict.
Hmm.
But at the same time, this whole emergence of China that I already mentioned is a big contributor to this recurring seasonal spikes. I think we can also expect perhaps renewable generation uh, to move in parallel with winter temperatures. So we could see, for example, that in Japan, because of the cold spell and the cloud cover, renewable, especially solar generation, also dropped significantly. So just when you needed additional electricity, most renewables also went down, and that in a way exacerbated the electricity market tightness in that particular market. So I think renewable variability is also a factor that can coincide with the seasonal cold spells, especially in northern regions. And on the shipping side also, I think what we have seen, that US is increasingly the swing supplier. At least last year it was a swing supplier. So as it swings down and then back up, that can actually have a very magnified impact on ton-mile demand in shipping, because US is relatively distant from markets, especially distant from Asia. So
Hmm.
when there are cargo cancellations, there is suddenly a huge excess of shipping capacity. Last year it was largely used for floating storage, LNG floating storage, which we highlighted on our previous report. But once US swings back, and especially if the marginal demand comes from Asia, then that suddenly creates a huge call on shipping demand, and suddenly shipping markets can tighten up very quickly, as we could see also during this winter. And it's not just the US. I think Russia increasingly will also contribute to this seasonal dynamic, as the restrictions on the northern sea route to Asia will
Right.
become more pronounced, and during the months of the highest demand, Russian cargoes can only go through Europe
Hmm.
to Asia, or to Russia, or stay in Europe actually, and Asia have to source its LNG from other markets. So
Yeah.
so I think this is adding to the seasonal volatility that we're going to see. At the same
Yeah.
time, as the energy transition progresses, uh, as we have more spare capacity in the infrastructure, I think over time that can add more resilience and more muted volatility over time. But I think we are
Hmm.
still some time away from that, and
Yeah.
Asia
I'm.
Asia, Asia is a bit further away from having excess gas infrastructure. If anything, they
Yes.
they will need more in the immediate future.
Yeah. No, I agree that in the short, medium term, we'll still have those seasonality swings. Interestingly, I think the use of gas in heating may vary depending on the regions and the countries. We start to see rich cities banning new residential buildings to be connecting to gas. It will be interesting to see how it evolves and what will be the impact longer term on gas demand.
Yeah, that's an issue in the US, in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
but not so much in China for now.
Right.
And in much of Southeast Asia there is no heating related demand at all. So that's in effect independent from this whole seasonal demand dynamic and not contributing to that particular volatility that we just discussed.
Yeah. Another interesting trend that is highlighted in the report is coal to gas switching. So where are we going to see the most coal to gas switching in 2021? And do you think that that's something that where we'll see increased interfuel competition, where right now we assume that coal will be replaced to gas, but can we assume that that will be the case in most of the emerging markets?
Yeah, so in the near term, I think last year coal to gas switching actually contributed quite significantly to the resilience of gas demand. So initially we forecasted a higher drop for 2020 than we could actually see. So I think our first estimate was around close to 4%, and the final estimate at the end of this year was minus 2.5. And the significant coal to gas switching that we could see in response to the record low prices throughout much of the year, if not the very end, was a significant contributor to that relatively shallower drop last year. Now this year we actually expect some normalization of prices, or at least the forward curves indicate that gas prices in Asia, Europe, and potentially also in the US will strengthen. So if anything, we can see some reversal of this coal to gas switching trend. I think, especially towards the beginning of the year, it seemed that the US could see a significant shift back from gas to coal, as gas production outlook didn't look very strong, and there is a lot of coal-fired generation capacity that is very sensitive to even relatively small moves in the Henry Hub gas price. So if U.S. gas production suffers either because of regulatory reasons or because of the relatively low oil price, then and Henry Hub price strengthens as a result, that we can actually see some switching back to coal from gas in the U.S. And similarly in Europe, I think the first 3 quarters of the previous year was quite easy going for natural gas fired generations, but at the price levels that the forward curves currently indicate, there is much more switching back and forth between coal. It looks like we're going to be much deeper into this coal to gas switching range than we were last year. So there
Yeah,
can
in
be
Europe,
some
it seems that
reversal of that.
Central Europe and Eastern Europe is a place to watch, to look at, because they have, the ability to move much more capacity from coal to gas still compared to Western Europe.
Yeah, we have still some coal capacity, not just there, but also in Germany and Poland are perhaps the two biggest, but also in Southern Europe and Central and Eastern Europe, as you said, we still have some switching capacity, and all these markets are liberalized electricity markets, so it's pretty much just a function of fuel costs and carbon prices. Now we are expecting some strengthening of the carbon price as we enter the next stage of the ETS, so that can present some headwinds to coal-fired generations and help gas a little bit on the margins, but still the price of gas is a key factor, and so it's not so straightforward as in 2020.
Yeah. It will be very interesting also to watch the dynamics between China and the US in climate negotiations, and whether China will still continue to build coal power capacity in southern Eastern Asia, and also whether some emerging markets will go directly into renewable and skip gas. It's not always possible. There are a whole environmental movement trying to push this agenda too.
Yeah, and you can make an argument that coal plus renewables is an alternative to a gas-based decarbonization strategy. Not always better in terms of environmental credentials, but something that if coal stays cheap and renewables are promoted regardless of what's happening in the gas market, then that can be an alternative scenario. We don't think that's very likely. So I think gas still has a very very substantial role to play in the energy transition strategies in the South and Southeast Asian countries, and also in China. But that's not the only possible outcome for sure.
Yeah, and that's why gas needs to remain affordable with a transparent price discovery. So Akos, let's move to your personal trajectory. So exactly a year ago, you moved to Paris to continue your career in energy as an analyst at the International Energy Agency, which is an international organization with, I guess, many multicultural people around you. Tell us a little bit what it looks like to work at the agency, and it seems that it's a great place to learn and network. Tell us more about the work environment and how you create such a report like this one.
Okay, yeah. As you said, I've been here for almost a year now. Some of that time was in various degrees of lockdown, so I think my experience is a bit distorted by that fact.
Yeah, and I feel like as a Parisian, you came to the city not at the best time, but for me, Paris is also like the architecture of the city, and even if all the museums are closed, the movie theaters, the restaurants, at least you can rely on the beauty of the architecture of the city.
Definitely. So I think work here has been great, and I like to say that if you're a rocket scientist, you want to work for NASA, and if you're an energy nerd like me, then you want to work for the IEA, and I never stopped being amazed by how brilliant and dedicated my colleagues here are. It's a diverse group with lots of different experiences, as you said. Everyone is putting in long hours, and you can look at the number of reports we produce. I think it's quite impressive. We have a staff of about 200 people, so it's not a huge organization at all. It's just the output that makes it seem that way. And we all share the same passion for energy, and it's great to work for an organization like this. I think the IEA itself is in a bit of a transition, as it has been for many decades now. So initially, until a few decades ago, it was mainly a rich country club, primarily concerned with oil supply security. Now we have broadened the scope to cover the entire energy and climate spectrum, and the core mission shifted to be, being the most authoritative voice in analyzing the whole energy sector and advising policymakers on sound energy and climate policies. And the membership has also shifted from purely being an OECD-based organization. In 2015, we opened up to a group of emerging economies. We now have 8 association members, including China and India. So we now cover about 3/4 of global energy consumption versus about 40% before. And I think the latest transformation is about being the leading voice of this whole clean energy transition and advocating sound policies related to that. And it's definitely very exciting to be part of this, and also to think about the role of gas in this whole process, which is not at all guaranteed or set in stone in any way. So it's a very very open question that can have many answers.
So, for example, when you work on such a report as the gas report that you published, how do you get the data, and how do you work with your team or people outside the team that collaborate also?
These types of reports are typically produced within the gas team, which is a small group of about it depends throughout the year. It varied anywhere between 5 to 8 people, and we each cover our own regions and specific teams, and we like to rely a lot on IEA in-house data. We have a whole statistical department which interacts with government agencies and has a great deal of in-house data available for us to work with. But we also obviously rely on external data providers. So some of the providers you can actually see in a report being referenced. I don't think I want to name them, but they're all great and great additional sources of insight and information that we regularly publish in our reports. And we just shifted the publication schedule from publishing one annual gas market outlook to producing a quarterly report every quarter.
To
And
be more timely.
yeah, I mean, there's just been so much happening in the gas market that we've been thinking for a while now that gas markets deserve a more frequent look and reevaluation and update on the latest market developments. So we try to adjust to this fast moving market environment in our own way.
Yeah, definitely. Great. And on a more personal side, I know that for me with COVID-19, like right now, today, I'm very thankful to my supporting crew at home, my husband, who is supporting my kids on Zoom while the snowstorm is ongoing and I came down here at work. But I know that on your end, you have a toddler at home and, you're a foreigner in Paris. We moved recently. So I guess it was not always an easy year for you, 2020.
Yeah, working from home with a toddler is in a way similar to parenthood in general. I think it's a lot of hard work, but a lot of fun at the same time. So my situation is we have an 18-month-old son at home with us. Until a few months ago, he was in a daycare, but we took him out because there were some repeated COVID cases, and we thought it's best to wait it out at home. So we have no separate room for him. So we mostly share our living room. And he's in a very very cute phase right now. He's learning to speak and he's never shy to try his voice, including when I'm on a call. And grabbing my mouse is a favorite pastime. So obviously there is some implications for daytime productivity, but I always can make up for it at night.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I never imagined that I can spend so much quality time with him before the pandemic. So I'm a stay-at-home dad and a working dad in one, and that's probably a good thing. I mean, if you're in a unique situation like me with a toddler, he doesn't need homeschooling yet, and I can do my work from home relatively flexibly, and sometimes working at nights, and so given the circumstances, I think this forced teleworking can be maybe a blessing in disguise if you think about that.
Great. Well, that's great to hear. And I think the pandemic has been challenging for many working parents, and depending on the age of the kids, each age has its own challenge.
Definitely.
Great. Well, it was really nice to exchange with you, Akos. Thank you. And maybe we'll have a follow-up conversation to check on what we said with the next report, if we were correct or not.
Yeah, likewise. Very nice to talk to you and look forward to the next one. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This concludes our Energy Vista podcast, which was recorded on February 1st, 2021. This is Leslie Palti-Guzman saying good day and good luck.